chance to go hands-on with 3 upcoming indie games, all from 11-bit studios. Some develop, some publish, and it was an absolute joy. And for transparency, 11-bit studios did cover my flights and my accommodations, but this is in no way a sponsored post, and I will be 100% honest with my thoughts on each game. I had an absolutely incredible time in Poland, and again, I cannot thank 11-bit studios enough for this experience. They have always been super kind to me. Now, usually videos are a let's save the best for last kind of thing, but I can't hold it in, so let's kick off with now what is one of my most anticipated video games of 2025, The Alters. So there's a lot to dive into with this one, and I was actually lucky enough to go to Poland last year to also check out a little bit of The Alters in Frostpunk 2. And I had a great time and I was thoroughly impressed, but that does not even remotely compare to this time. Starting off with the amount of playtime, 11-bit are so confident in this game, we played the prologue, about 3-ish hours of Act 1, and almost just as equal time with Act 2 as well. Before going further into detail, there are a lot of mechanics that either I did not see because of the playtime was much shorter last year, or it was just not that far along in development yet. I mean, it has been a year, so this kind of seems very likely. But as a survival game, I really got the chance to see so many different mechanics work together, and I am not kidding, they literally had to pull me off the computer both times I was playing. I took just a 30-minute lunch and no more. So for anyone who is unfamiliar with The Alters, or what it even is, this is a survival game that blends a few different genres together. You play as Jan Dulski, who is on a mission that went wrong, and as he is left deserted on a planet with his entire crew dead or missing, and it is up to you to reestablish connection with Earth and get yourself home. Now, one of the most interesting aspects of this game is that you make a run into some material called Rapidium, and this allows Jan to clone himself, but it's not the same exact Jan Dulski that you start with. You actually get to look at the key events of Jan Dulski's life and pick another branching path to create what is known as an altar. Now, for example, the Jan we originally know had a dad who beat on his mom, and this Jan never did anything about it. But you can create an altar who did decide to stand up to his dad, and he went down a completely different life path. And while this is super interesting for a narrative, this 100% completely comes into the gameplay, because maybe one altar is a scientist, one became a botanist that'll help you grow plants faster for food, maybe one is a refiner or a miner, all with different specialized skills. I was at a point where I created, I believe, 4 to 5 different versions of Jan Dulski all at the same time, and it was awesome. Another cool thing is all of them are voice acted by the same guy, Alex Jordan, who I spent numerous hours chatting with about his whole experience, and it is genuinely impressive how each of these characters look, sound, and act differently, but all have this core element of Jan Dulski at the center. It is really cool stuff, and I cannot give Alex enough praise for his work here. Okay, so we kind of have set up the narrative and where the story is going to start out, but what does the actual gameplay look like? Well, we learn early on that we have to escape before the sun comes up, because if not, we all will die. So in Act 1, you start on day 1, and you have limited time to go out into the field, mine for resources, and bring them back before nightfall when there is heavy radiation. Complete some tasks before you go to sleep and end the day. Sounds pretty simple, yeah? Well, for the first few hours, I thought so too. This is where my gameplay from last year and this year really differentiated. Because when I tell you I really felt the survival elements this time around, and I mean I was sweating. But let's backtrack first just a bit. When you first go out, you will go into an area to explore, and there will be different materials that you can go and mine for manually, but this will speed up time very rapidly when you do so. The goal is to scan and find these kind of deep zones where you can mine continuously for and connect them back to your base with these poles. And again, at the beginning, it'll likely just be you and maybe one other Jan Dulski, but you soon find out that if you really want to have any kind of chance at survival, you will need more Jans on deck. literally. So you'll want to go and find some Rapidium to make some new versions of yourself. But here's where things start to get a little tricky. Your base does not operate on its own. You need to make sure you are building shields to keep it from the radiation. You need to make sure you have enough repair kits so when one of your units go down, you or another Yan can fix it up. Every single person must be fed daily. So you better make sure you are farming, growing, and preparing and distributing meals. Then as things get more hectic, Yans start asking for things like an infirmary because someone got heavy radiation poisoning. They would like a gym to decompress. You have to make sure all of them have different beds to sleep on. This is where the stress really starts, and I have not even covered the half of it. And all of this while you are still trying to do story objectives in a timely manner to outrace the sun and complete your objectives. Now, of course, each of these Yans can be assigned to almost any task that you'd like. But for example, the miner will be more efficient in mining. So really, that would be ideal. Just like the scientist for researching things and the technician for repairs. Trying to balance all of this is incredibly stressful, but is somehow so addicting. And I have not even begun to mention when you build the research lab and you start to study new upgrades like the size of the base, different storage bins, because yes, you also have to manage your inventory and base building aspects all by yourself as well. You can get upgrades like being able to mine more efficiently, maybe get different suit upgrades that allow you to be out in the radiation more, or maybe there's a side quest that needs attention, but you need to learn how to build something or run an autopsy. It's actually nuts. And then in the midst of all of this can come arguments between the different Yans. Maybe one of them thinks we need to be more resourceful and just survive off the mush and not waste time on actual meals, but the other does not want to be treated like an animal, so you have to pick which side you will go for, and of course causing one to be upset and the other joy. But this even goes further, because during one of these missions I learned how to be assertive. At the beginning, all you were trying to do is please the other alters, but you learn that sometimes you have to say no, even when everyone else thinks they are right, and this opens more dialogue options. Now, I'm not sure if this part is going to be in the B-roll that is provided to me, but it looked like there was one of many different identity type skills, and I'm really interested of how many more will be in this game. Oh yeah, and most of this good stuff was mainly part of Act 1, and then Act 2 decides to open up even more mechanics to juggle. For instance, I got so busy with my main objective, which required a ton of resources, I totally forgot to prep my shields, build repair kits, so I was told my base had 5 minutes to be repaired or it was all over. Now, I never actually got to the death of this, as I did recover, but man, I was stressed. Another key thing that happened in this story mode was one of the Yans was missing his arm, but in the repairing process, of course, it was grown back. But he did not like this because he did not feel like himself. And now I come back from a day's work and he ended up chopping his own arm off. So he is literally dying unless I decide to build the infirmary, because yes, your alters can also die. But the scientist goes, you know what? This is an easy fix. I'm going to build him a prosthetic arm. And after that process has been going on, one of the other alters suggests maybe this is only a temporary solution, as the main problem is it does not feel like himself. So let's actually try to use some Rapidium to make a serum to rebuild his arm back. And you have to choose which direction you would like to go. I found this incredibly interesting and really thought-provoking, as I genuinely had to ponder what would be the right solution here. And I found it so fascinating. I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy how complex both the gameplay and the writing and characters are so far. Now, there are also different relics of your past that you can find to bring back home, like movies and such, to give to the other Yans to make them even more happy. I was even able to build a rec room and actually play a beer pong minigame in this game. I thought it was freaking sick. You can also build a gym as well, even an advanced one. Just tons of opportunities to be really creative, and I hope there are a few more of these kind of things here. Now, while I do find the dialogue and its choices very impressive, I do wish the actual back and forth dialogue felt a little bit more natural. Now, I don't think this has anything to do with the voice acting performance or anything like that. I just mean the way the game's narrative is like edited together. I just wish it felt a little less like, you say your sentence, I say my sentence, if that makes any kind of sense. It is a super small nitpick, but again, I just thought I would mention any like minor gripes that I have, but the positives long and far outweigh any negatives I could have about this game. And one of the last things I got got into at my playthrough of Act 2 was called anomalies. And you have to create this device to get rid of them as they can damage you. And of course, it turns out there are numerous types of anomalies. Some may follow you, some may actually speed up time and reduce your day. You have to find different ways to deal with them. Now, I did not see this mechanic in its entirety, of course, but it was just another thing to add, which I thought was awesome. And I also think the base building mechanics are really going to surprise people as well, as I'm not usually someone who really cares about that stuff, but I found it really enjoyable. Again, not the biggest aspect of the game, but it was great being able to kind of make it your own. Performance was also super solid as well. We also got to play on really high-end PCs. I had no crashes, major bugs, or really anything like that. The Alters is a game that I somehow find very hard to explain and showcase because it's like a blend of so many different things and genres, but when it all comes together, I think it works really well. I actually got to interview the director of the game, and unfortunately, we did not have great lighting at all, but he was so kind, and I did ask if there was any influence of one of their older games called This War of Mine, which is an amazing game, and I think heavily influences the Alters, as he told me as well. I found a lot of mechanics that were even more realized here, which I thought was fantastic. I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy how different the Alters is and really connect with the story of Jan Dulski and looking at your life and analyzing how different things would be if you went down a different path. I'm really curious to see where the story goes from here, and I am so excited for the Alters full release on June 13th, and I really hope you guys check it out. I think it rocks. If I could be completely transparent, I never thought a game like Death Howl would really interest me. That has nothing to do with the quality of the game, but I just have never really been one for deck builders. But I will say this idea of a Souls-like deck builder along the art style absolutely grabbed my attention. And one of the lovely people at 11-Bit Studios reached out to me a few months back to play a demo build, and I was really surprised how much I enjoyed it. And this time around, it was a much more polished and even longer demo, and again, I was left very surprised. The story is pretty simple, at least from what I have played so far, in which you play as a woman who's lost her son, and she roams around the spirit realm to try to find him again. It's really compelling, really quickly, and a part of that is the music here. We actually get a chance to hear the people behind the music live at this event, and they were really incredible and completely married with the game. This reminded me a lot of Supergiant games and their music in a really good way. The art style is also incredible, and which I feel like speaks for itself, with really cool boss battles, really cool character designs. Creating different cards and utilizing and strategizing was really good. Now, I do preface, I am no expert when it comes to strategy games or deck builders, but as a newcomer, I found this very enjoyable. When I finished, I legitimately wanted to play more, which is awesome. They have numerous checkpoints to level up after defeating enemies, lots of variety of biomes and bosses. I think this one is going to hit for a specific audience, and I think it's going to go over very well. This is one of those shorter demos that we got to play, so of course, I don't really have too much else to go on in either a positive or negative direction, but again, I really enjoyed my playtime with Death Howl, and I highly encourage you to check it out when it launches. Moonlighter 2, The Endless Vault, is one I was really looking forward to, as I'm a pretty big fan of roguelikes, and I love the idea of having to hunt for treasure in dungeons and spend the day negotiating and selling those items for money. And while I do like a lot of what I played here, I unfortunately do not have the best final representation of this game. I found I liked a lot of the pieces here, and I think with just a little bit of tweaks, this can be something really awesome. So I'm very hopeful because there's still a decent amount of time before launch, but let's get into the details. For starters, right off the bat, we were given a list of various bugs and things that the devs knew were known issues at the time, so again, there really isn't anything to worry about too much, as this happens a lot at preview events, not like saying any negative just because that happened. But one of the odd things is that, this is a roguelike, so the entire idea of the game is to try something, dying, then using the resources that you got to upgrade and progress further. Now, the actual health upgrade system and the upgrade to receive more heals than one, unfortunately, did not work. That was one of the few busted mechanics. So I genuinely did find this a little more challenging than usual. Now, let's at least cover a few of the aspects I like. The art style is really awesome and unique. The town is very cool, and again, I love the idea of having like a shop to manage and actually going out and doing the dungeons to get those relics. This idea felt very similar to Dave the Diver, which is a very, very good thing. I loved that game, and I felt a lot of the elements from that in this game. The combat was also pretty good overall. You've got a dodge, basic attacks, which can combo, a gun that refills when you're doing melee hits, and you can even knock people back back with your oversized backpack. There's also a lot of enemies on screen at one time, and I feel like if you've ever played a roguelike before, this is going to feel very familiar to you. You also get different boons as well after each enemy encounter, and will choose which room you want to go to next. But the idea is to collect loot, and the most interesting thing is that you actually have to assign the locations in your backpack. So for example, let's say I put 4 relics onto one slot, and then I get a relic later that says if I place this in the same row as others, all of the rest of them will disappear, but I'll gain 200 currency for each relic in that slot. So I thought this was really cool, and I am definitely excited to see how that plays out in the long term. All in all, I really did like Moonlighters 2, and I do think there was a lot of potential here. I just really hope they nailed the polish down, refine the combat a little bit more, but I really just did not even get enough time to play even the first main boss in the game, so that's really all I have on it, but I am very excited to play more for sure. They dedicated quite a bit of time to the altars during this play session, which I totally understand. It was their big push. I have zero regret playing that much of the altars. I would easily do it again, but I do wish we just had a little bit more play time with this game, because to be honest, I just feel like I don't have that much information to kind of critique or tell you what I liked even a bit more, and I really, really wish I would have. But again, I do preface, this was a very early build. This was like, I think the first time they have ever had any kind of like people playing hands-on. We've still got some time to let this cook. I just really think if they lock this down, it is going to be rock solid for sure, and I really hope they get the time to do so. Now, I've said time and time again that 11-Bit Studios always gets insane respect for me, because these guys are always either developing or publishing things that are just different, and I absolutely love them for that. I highly encourage you guys to check out all of these games when they release. The Altars will be dropping soon on June 13th. I cannot wait to play the full game. I should be getting a review copy, so hopefully I'll have a review on that day one. So yeah, that is pretty much it, and I will see you guys in the next one.